In this video, we'll be taking a look at 6 college football games, and I'll break them all down with free winning picks so you can bet smarter and win bigger. But first, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you get our picks the second they drop, because when the lines move, the early birds cash in. And if you want the full Winning Sport Picks experience, head over to WSPicks.com and check out our VIP packages, or grab a free consultation with one of our professional sports consultants for the sharpest edge you'll find anywhere. That's where the real plays live. We are your bookmaker's worst nightmare. These are the games we're hammering, the ones the books can't afford you to bet. This is Winning Sport Picks. The free picks are about to drop, and they're coming in hot. Mississippi State against Georgia sets up as one of those classic SEC grinders where identity, discipline, and game flow matter far more than individual talent. Mississippi State thrives when games slow down, when defensive leverage creates shorter fields, and when opponents become impatient and start forcing decisions. Georgia, on the other hand, tends to lean on structure and stability, stretching possessions, wearing teams down with long drives, and trusting there to control the rhythm. The interesting part here is that Mississippi State actually benefits from volatility, whether that's a sudden change in field position or a defensive stand that flips momentum. Georgia prefers to suffocate chaos entirely. So the question becomes, which style dictates the temperature? Mississippi State's path comes from early resistance and avoiding quick 3-and-outs. Georgia's comes from forcing predictable downs and turning the middle quarters into a slow bleed. This matchup becomes a test of who can hold their identity longest, and more importantly, who blinks first when the leverage spots appear. BYU versus Texas Tech brings a completely different dynamic, one driven by tempo, spacing, and emotional swings. BYU is at its best when it creates uncertainty through pace shifts, mixing conservative stretches with sudden bursts to catch defenses misaligned. Texas Tech, however, thrives in games where they can script momentum, settle into a rhythm, and force opponents into elongated defensive series. BYU wants chaos pockets, Tech wants structural comfort. The matchup hinges heavily on field position discipline and first down efficiency. Any team falling behind the chains here risks losing their entire footing because both offenses tend to snowball drives when they're in rhythm. BYU's window comes from forcing Tech into uncomfortable mid-drive adjustments. Tech's window comes from consistently winning the early down battles and keeping the defensive pressure tilted. Southern Miss against Arkansas State is the kind of game that usually swings on discipline rather than explosive moments. Southern Miss generally succeeds, when the game becomes a tightrope, forcing opponents to sustain long drives, minimizing mistakes, and letting pressure accumulate over time. Arkansas State leans more into momentum football, trying to create runs of energy where multiple positive series stack together. Southern Miss wants a controlled environment. Arkansas State wants a spark-driven one. The tension here is that both teams have stretches where they stall offensively, and whichever side manages to avoid those dead pockets will likely seize the narrative. Expect long possessions, a lot of tactical punting, and a slow burn contest where every small edge compounds. Furman versus Chattanooga gives us a stylistic contrast built on toughness and patience. Furman operates best when they can dictate pacing, turning the game into a battle of calculated decisions. Chattanooga thrives on pressure, pushing defensive intensity, creating uncomfortable moments, and leveraging physicality to disrupt timing. Furman loves games where nothing comes easy for either side. Chattanooga loves games where they can force opponents into rushed adjustments. The trench battle will be decisive because both teams depend on structure. If Furman can keep Chattanooga from setting the tempo, the game becomes a grind. If Chattanooga establishes physical pressure early, they control the middle stretch and force Furman into catch-up sequences. Ohio State versus Purdue carries an intensity rooted in expectations. Ohio State operates like a machine when it controls the middle of the field and forces opponents into predictable, reactive football. Purdue attempts to counter by stretching possessions, playing disciplined, and preventing the snowball effect that Ohio State often creates. But these kinds of matchups usually come down to whether the underdog can avoid the early avalanche. Purdue needs long, draining series and a slowed game script. Ohio State wants to impose overwhelming pressure early and never let off the throttle. Momentum becomes everything. One shift can tilt the entire matchup. Bowling Green against Eastern Michigan is a matchup built on hidden possession value. Bowling Green tries to use field position, situational pressure, and defensive stands to create edges. Eastern Michigan leans on consistency and structure, minimizing mistakes and controlling tempo. Bowling Green wants emotional swings. Eastern Michigan wants a steady march. These teams often find themselves in tactical battles where each adjustment shifts leverage. Expect a tight, methodical matchup where execution matters far more than explosiveness. Now listen to me, those are the free picks, but the one game I am unloading on tonight, the game that's going to crush your bookie's soul, that's the VIP play of the day at WSPicks.com. This is the nuke, the hammer, the max bet, the one play I've circled, the game that will bury your bookmaker 6 feet under. When it hits, and it will, your bookie is going to need a doctor, a lawyer, and maybe even a priest. If you want to ride with me on the biggest bet of the day, get to WSPicks.com right now. Here's your recap. Mississippi State +9 and the under 56.5. BYU +11 and the over 51.5. Southern Miss -4 and the over 55. Furman +4.5 and the over 54.5. Purdue +29.5 and the over 48. Bowling Green +2.5 and the over 50.5. This is Winning Sport Picks, where we don't just bet, we bury bookmakers. Smash that subscribe button, drop your favorite plays in the comments, and hammer that like button like you're hammering your bookie into the dirt. We're cashing, we're dominating, and tonight we're dancing on the grave of your bookmaker.